Are you absolutely certain you wouldn't freeze, starve, or hand your last bottle of water to a stranger before sunrise? Because that's what I watched my neighbor do during a 6-hour local outage that turned into 20. He's a good guy. 2 kids. Nice grill, the I'll figure it out type. Power blinked out at 5:12 p.m. And by 6 o'clock he'd already opened the fridge 5 times just to check. By 8:30 he was on my porch, shivering in a t-shirt, asking if candles actually expire and whether his garage door could be opened without the wall button. At 10 o'clock his phone died because he kept refreshing the news for answers that weren't coming. By midnight, his house was a dark box with a warming fridge, a silent garage, and 2 scared kids. Meanwhile, I'd cooked the fast-spoil meat on a camp stove, moved perishables to a packed freezer, filled the tub, staged radios, and locked down the block with the neighbors who were ready. Same street, same outage, 2 different worlds, panic versus control. Are you confident enough to bet your family on it'll come back soon, because soon is a fairy tale people tell themselves while their food turns risky, their taps lose pressure, and nerves snap? The first hour of a blackout is not theater, it's a knife edge. Either you act with a checklist and a clock, or you drift into that slow, stupid chaos where everyone burns through options, tempers, and calories. I'm not here to sell you doom. I'm here to hand you a plan that starts the second the lights die and doesn't depend on apps, luck, or wishful thinking. 5 moves: food triage, water capture, heat and shelter, comms that actually work, and hardening your perimeter, executed fast, quietly, and in the right order. That's how you keep your house from becoming the one people whisper about on a dark street. Are you ready to stop hoping and start doing? Good. Because in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what to hit in minute 1, minute 10, and minute 59, so when the grid slips your home doesn't. Item number 5, secure your food before it's too late. The very first thing you need to realize in a blackout is that food doesn't just sit patiently in your fridge, waiting for the lights to come back on. It begins its countdown to rot the second the power cuts. According to the USDA, refrigerated food becomes unsafe in as little as 4 hours once the temperature rises above 40 degrees Fahrenheit, while frozen foods can spoil after 24-48 hours. That's not a wide margin. In fact, during the 2003 Northeast blackout, millions of dollars in groceries were lost within the first day, and people were caught totally unprepared. So within the first hour of a blackout, you must secure your food resources, or you risk losing everything you've stocked up. This doesn't mean panic eating everything in your fridge, it means using strategy, foresight, and discipline to stretch what you have. Start by identifying the most perishable items: milk, eggs, raw meat, seafood, soft cheeses, and either cook them immediately, or transfer them to the coldest part of the freezer to buy time. Even if your stove doesn't work, you can use a propane camping stove, a grill, or even build a makeshift fire pit to pre-cook items. Why? Because cooked food lasts significantly longer than raw food, even at room temperature. Boiled eggs can last 5-7 days without refrigeration if stored in clean conditions, while cooked chicken can be consumed within 48 hours, giving you critical flexibility. Next, consolidate your cold items. Don't leave milk in the fridge and steak in the freezer. Move everything you want to preserve into the freezer compartment, and keep that door closed. The less you open it, the longer the cold air lasts. Studies from FEMA show that a full freezer retains safe temperatures nearly twice as long as a half-empty one. This means filling empty space with ice packs, frozen water bottles, or even Ziploc bags of water you froze ahead of time. When you eventually drink that thawed water, you'll be pulling double duty: hydration and temperature control. But here's where most people fail: they don't have a blackout cooking plan. If the grid stays down for more than 24 hours, raw meat in your freezer turns into a biohazard. That's when a small propane camp stove or even a solar cooker becomes a survival tool, not a luxury. One 16-ounce propane canister provides about 2 hours of solid cooking power. 3 or 4 canisters could keep you fed for an entire week if rationed correctly. In Puerto Rico, after Hurricane Maria, families who had portable stoves fared dramatically better than those waiting in endless FEMA food lines. Finally, don't forget about food security from outsiders. The minute neighbors see or smell you cooking when their homes are dark and empty, you become a target. That's why you must practice light and scent discipline. Cook discreetly, use blackout curtains, and vent smoke away from populated areas. Your food isn't just calories, it's bargaining power, community leverage and survival currency in a world suddenly stripped of convenience stores and delivery apps. Within the first hour of a blackout, food decisions separate the prepared from the desperate. Item number 4, lock down your water supply. Immediately, if food is the first line of survival, water is the non-negotiable. The human body can last weeks on reduced calories, but only 3 days without water, and that's under moderate conditions. Add in heat, stress, or illness, and dehydration can kill you in under 36 hours. Here's the terrifying part: municipal water systems rely on electrically powered pumps, purification systems, and treatment plants. Within an hour of a total blackout, pressure begins to drop in the pipelines. Within 24 hours, taps in many cities will run dry, and when they do, your water problems won't just be inconvenient, they'll be catastrophic. The first hour of a blackout is your golden window to lock down every drop you can. Fill every bathtub, sink and large container in your house before the pressure falters. A standard bathtub holds about 80 gallons of water. That's enough for a family of 4 to drink, cook and clean minimally, for 2 to 3 weeks if rationed carefully. Think about that. One simple action could give you weeks of breathing room while your neighbors scramble with empty buckets. FEMA recommends 1 gallon per person per day, but seasoned preppers will tell you that 2 gallons per day is far more realistic when you factor in hygiene, cooking and medical needs. But here's where most people miss the point. Not all water is created equal. Tap water stored in buckets without lids quickly becomes a breeding ground for bacteria and insects. Within 48 hours, you could be looking at algae, mosquito larvae, and contamination. That's why you need dedicated water storage solutions, like water bob liners, $35 each, designed to fit in bathtubs and keep water clean and potable for weeks. Add water treatment drops or unscented household bleach, just 8 drops per gallon, to neutralize microbial threats. Then comes filtration. Even if your taps are still running in the early hours, that water may not be safe. In 2014, a power outage in Detroit caused water treatment plants to malfunction, sending contaminated water into households before the public was even warned. Mechanical water filters like LifeStraw Family or Berkey systems remove 99.99% of bacteria and viruses, giving you peace of mind when the grid's safety nets collapse. Don't forget manual pumps and siphons, either. If you live near a pond, river, or even a swimming pool, these tools let you extract and transport water efficiently when hauling buckets becomes exhausting. Finally, let's talk about security. Just as with food, once your neighbors run dry, they will look to you. A gallon of water is heavy. It weighs 8.34 pounds, so people desperate enough won't hesitate to take risks. That's why you need to secure your water storage, conceal it when possible, and prepare to defend it if necessary. Water is more than hydration. It's cooking fuel, medical sanitation, morale sustenance, and bargaining power. Without it, society falls apart fast. During the Syrian civil war, entire neighborhoods collapsed not from gunfire, but from lack of clean water. The difference between collapse and resilience often comes down to those first critical hours, when people either filled their tubs or assumed the taps would always run. In short, if you do nothing else in the first 60 minutes of a blackout, fill every container you own. Because once the pressure drops, and the taps sputter to silence, it's too late. Your survival clock will already be ticking down. Item number 3. Secure heat and shelter before the cold kills you. You can live without food for weeks, you can stretch water for days, but when the temperature drops below 50 degrees Fahrenheit indoors, the clock on hypothermia starts ticking. According to the CDC, hypothermia begins when your body temperature falls just 2 degrees Fahrenheit below normal. And here's the brutal reality. In a grid-down blackout, heating systems are dead weight. Electric furnaces, heat pumps, even gas and oil heaters, require electronic ignition and circulation fans. Within hours, your warm home can turn into an icebox. especially in northern states, where winter nights plunge below freezing. In the first hour of a blackout, you need to secure heat and shelter options, before the temperature dips and before stores are emptied by desperate crowds. Start with insulation. Every home leaks heat through windows, doors and thin walls. FEMA reports that up to 40% of household heat loss happens through windows alone. That means even before nightfall, you need to seal off your living space. Close off unused rooms, hang blankets or tarps over windows, and shrink your survival zone to 1 or 2 small rooms where body heat can accumulate. Families that survived the 1998 ice storm in Quebec, where millions were left without power for weeks, relied on this technique. They slept in tight quarters, used mattresses and furniture to block drafts, and converted living rooms into survival bunkers. Next comes heat sources. Emergency blankets, also called mylar sheets, cost under $2 each, and reflect 90% of body heat. Layering mylar inside tents, or makeshift shelters, creates a microclimate that can mean the difference between shivering and sleeping. Candles, though small, can raise room temperatures by several degrees if the space is sealed tightly. But the real powerhouse is alternative heating. Kerosene heaters, wood stoves, or even propane heaters, designed for indoor use with proper ventilation. 1 gallon of kerosene produces 135,000 BTUs of heat energy, enough to keep a small room warm for hours. The tragedy is, most people don't own even one backup heat source. They assume the grid will always keep them safe. But here's a trick most overlook. Clothing is shelter. Layering wool, fleece and down traps warm air close to the body. Cotton kills because it holds moisture, pulling heat away. Wool, on the other hand, can retain 80% of its insulating properties even when wet. During the 2021 Texas blackout, hospitals admitted hundreds of cases of hypothermia, not because people lacked heaters, but because they failed to dress properly. Don't forget ventilation. When sealing in your space, you must maintain oxygen flow. Every year people die in blackouts, not from cold, but from carbon monoxide poisoning, because they used unventilated stoves or generators indoors. The CDC warns that CO poisoning spikes dramatically during outages. That means CO detectors with battery backup, or even better, mechanical indicator cards, are lifesavers. Finally, think security. A lit lantern or burning fire can draw attention. If your home is the only warm glowing spot on a freezing street, you've painted a target on yourself. Blackout curtains, indoor fire pits with chimneys, and concealed heating setups let you stay alive without broadcasting your advantage. Bottom line, heat is survival speed chess. If you don't act in the first hour to lock down your shelter and heat sources, the cold doesn't wait politely. It moves in, steals your energy, clouds your judgment, and takes lives faster than hunger ever will. Item number 2. Establish communication before silence becomes deadly. When the lights go out, panic sets in. People rush to their phones, refreshing, rebooting, praying for signal. But here's the ugly truth. According to the FCC, most cellular towers only have 24 hours of backup power, and during extended blackouts or EMP scenarios, they go silent fast. Once that happens, you're cut off. No 911. No news updates. No word from family across town. You're blind in a world that's already on fire. That's why within the first hour of a blackout, you must establish your lines of communication. Miss this window, and you may never reconnect. Start with the basics: emergency radios. A $30 hand crank radio tuned to NOAA or local AM SEP stations can keep you ahead of the curve. During the 2017 Hurricane Maria crisis in Puerto Rico, radio broadcasts provided the only reliable updates for weeks. Families who owned hand crank radios knew where aid was being distributed, which roads were passable, and which neighborhoods were unsafe. Everyone else stumbled in the dark, literally and figuratively. But reception isn't enough. You need two-way communication. FRS and GMRS walkie-talkie, which cost $25, $50 per pair, can bridge distances of 2-5 miles depending on terrain. That means you can coordinate with neighbors, family members or survival groups, even if cell towers are down. Prepping communities often use preset radio channels as rally points during emergencies. If you don't set those up in the first hour, you risk scattering your people permanently. And here's a level few consider: communication security. In desperate times, information is currency. You don't want strangers overhearing your supply runs, defense plans, or locations of hidden resources. That's why CB radios and shortwave setups, though more complex, are vital. In Bosnia during the 1990s collapse, ham radio operators became the backbone of community survival networks, relaying medical requests, trade opportunities, and warnings of hostile groups. But these systems require licenses and training before the grid fails, something only the serious preppers have already done. Don't overlook signaling. Whistles, mirrors, and even colored cloths can send messages over short distances without electronics. A whistle blast carries farther than a human voice, and doesn't shred your throat after hours of shouting. These tools may sound primitive, but in chaotic environments, they're lifesavers. Finally, communication isn't just about gadgets, it's about plans. Where will your family meet if separated? What's your fallback location if the house is compromised? Who's responsible for checking on vulnerable neighbors? These plans must be discussed and executed within the first hour, before panic fragments everyone's thinking. After Hurricane Katrina, families who lacked communication and meeting plans were split up for weeks, some never reunited. The first hour is the last chance to anchor your people to a plan, lock in radio channels, and make sure information flows. Without it, silence isn't peaceful, it's fatal. Item number 1. Secure your perimeter and defend your home. Here's the harshest truth no one wants to admit. When the grid goes dark, the rules of society start bending. Law enforcement is instantly overwhelmed. In the 1977 New York blackout, looting began within minutes of the lights going out, with more than 1,600 stores ransacked in less than 24 hours. Now imagine a nationwide blackout lasting weeks. If you don't secure your perimeter in the first hour, your stockpiled food, water, and supplies won't matter, because someone else will take them. Defense begins with visibility and access control. Walk your property immediately. Are your doors locked with real deadbolts, not flimsy interior locks? Are windows latched, ground-level entries blocked, and garages secured? A $20 bar lock on a sliding glass door can be the difference between intruders walking in silently and giving you the minutes you need to respond. FEMA recommends layered security, meaning multiple barriers that slow intruders long enough for you to react. Next, set up lighting discipline. Darkness is a double-edged sword. You don't want to advertise your resources, but you also can't afford to stumble blindly. That's where red filtered flashlights and blackout curtains come in. Red light preserves night vision, keeping you alert to movement outside without drawing attention. Blackout curtains prevent your lanterns from glowing like beacons to desperate neighbors. Remember, in a survival scenario, even a flicker of light can mark you as a target. But perimeter defense isn't just about locks and curtains, it's about organization. Assign watches if you're with family or neighbors. Rotate shifts. The U.S. military runs 24/7 watch rotations for a reason. Fatigue and complacency kill. Even in urban neighborhoods, forming ad hoc block patrols can deter opportunistic looters. During the 1992 Los Angeles riots, Korean-American shop owners famously armed themselves and took turns defending rooftops. Their stores survived intact while others burned to the ground. Then comes the question most avoid: weapons. In desperate times, people become dangerous. The FBI reported that after Hurricane Katrina, firearm-related incidents spiked 200%. If you legally own firearms, the first hour is the time to stage them safely, but accessibly. If not, even basic defensive tools, pepper spray, bats, wasp spray, or improvised barriers, are better than nothing. The point isn't to pick a fight, but to make your home a harder target. Looters look for the weakest links. Don't be one. Finally, secure your mindset. In a blackout, hesitation equals vulnerability. You need to be mentally ready to enforce boundaries, to say no when others ask for supplies you cannot spare, and to act decisively if your family's safety is threatened. History shows that in every prolonged disaster, from Argentina's 2001 collapse to modern Venezuela's blackouts, those who established boundaries early were the ones who survived with their resources intact. Remember this, within the first hour, you're not just protecting your stuff, you're protecting the ability to keep your family alive tomorrow, next week, and next month. If you don't secure your perimeter now, you won't have anything left to defend later. And here's the question you need to wrestle with when this video ends. If the lights cut out tonight, would you be the one calmly locking down food, water, heat, comms and security? Or would you be the neighbor standing on someone else's porch, asking for candles? The first hour decides it. You don't get a second chance. So ask yourself now, when everything stops, will you already be moving, or will you already be behind?